In this movie, we're looking at a different workbook, 02 Regional Sales. It's got 4 sheets named after states. The California sheet is visible at first. As I click the Texas sheet, notice that the layout is identical. Numbers are different. Same thing with Florida and New York. And on sheet 1 here, we might want to get some totals from those sheets. So for cell B2, I want to get the California total. If you've not worked with formulas that gather data from different sheets, either from the same workbook or different workbooks, keep in mind you can write these very easily, and nearly always you do not want to be typing sheet names. I'm going to type equal and click the California sheet, and then click cell F6, that has the total in it that I want, and return. The formula, as I double-click cell B2, looks like this. Sheet names are always followed by exclamation points. But don't type these. It's just an opportunity for a typing mistake, and it's much easier to click. I'll do one for Texas. Equal, click the Texas sheet, and there too I'll click cell F6, enter. We could do others, and there is a more efficient way to do this by way of the offset function. You might see that in a later movie. I'll do this for New York, for a special reason though. Equal, click the New York sheet, pick up that cell there, return. Now, sometimes sheet names have spaces in them, sometimes they don't. Right now, the sheet name at the bottom of the screen, New York, has a space in it, although this text here doesn't. So how's this formula look different than perhaps the Texas and California formulas looked? Now we happen to see single quotes in here. If a sheet tab has a space in it, Excel has to indicate that slightly differently by using single quotes. Now, I wouldn't call this wrong. It's not wrong. It does work. It works just fine here. But it does clutter up the formula a little bit. And in certain formulas that gather data from multiple sheets, those sheet names that have spaces in them will require these single quotes. Now, you don't have to type them unless you actually are typing in the sheet name, which I don't recommend, but it does increase that difficulty of reading certain formulas, particularly those with longer names and those that might have multiple spaces in them. So, nothing wrong with this. It works just fine. But from time to time, you might want to consider getting rid of the spaces. We can also gather data by adding data from different sheets. Equal, I want to get the Texas data. I'll go to Texas, click on that cell there, put in a plus. Then I'll go to Florida, click that cell F6 again, all done, return. So we added data, and no surprises there in terms of the appearance. Now, what we might want to do, though, is gather data from all 4 of these sheets at the same time. And maybe, why not have a sheet that looks exactly like the others, the exact same layout, the same headings in row 2 and in column A, but with formulas here that actually gather data. Now, we could start off this process by taking one of our states, the data for New York, let's say, and copy-paste this onto a new sheet. We could do that. A better way, and ultimately a faster way, is simply to make a copy of the sheet and change its name. So picking no sheet in particular, but New York is active right now, I'm going to drag this sheet to the right with the Option key held down. Got the Option key held down, I drag New York to the right, let go of the mouse. I've made a duplicate of the sheet. The sheets are identical in every respect except for the name. So for the copy that I've made here, it's called New York 2, at least for now, I'll double-click the Sheet tab and change its name to Summary. And I'll also change cell A1 so that it says Summary. Now, of course, the worksheet is not a summary just yet. These cells in here right now are just data from the New York sheet. This is the only raw data. These are pure numbers. Everything to the right and below this happen to be formulas. Now, I don't really have to get rid of these because I'm going to be writing over them, but I will to accentuate or bring out the idea that we're going to put in new formulas here that gather data from the other sheets. There are 2 ways to do this. The first way might seem long, but it will involve very little typing. I'm going to type equal, and then one by one go to each of the sheets simply by clicking the Sheet tab in the appropriate cell and add up the data from the other 4 sheets. This is for Couches Retail. It's going to be in cell B3 in all of these. First thing is, I'll click California, click cell B3, put in a plus. Then click Texas, click cell B3, put in a plus, then Florida, B3 and a plus, and then finally New York, B3, and no final plus needed, return. We've got a total out here, it's 5,000. So we're gathering the data from different sheets. And notice again, because New York has a space in it, the sheet tab does, we see single quotes out there. To clean that up, although it's not truly necessary, I'll double click the New York sheet tab and simply get rid of the space between the W and the Y. And that means the formula on the summary sheet will have adjusted. It looks like this. Now, what I did here certainly works. And if we had another state, not so bad. At some point, you'll be saying to yourself, there's got to be a better way to do this. Would we do this if we had 20 states? No, we wouldn't. And 50? Of course not. This would take forever. Now, we weren't typing. All I typed really was the equal sign and the 3 pluses. But clicking back and forth each time, it would take some time to create this. And it's not the best way to do it, although it's certainly accurate here. Let's do this in a different way. Let's start by simply putting in sum. And rather than typing it, let's use the auto sum button. Now you can't use the keystroke shortcut here, Command-Shift-T, because it will automatically come up with a total. So use the auto sum button, either on the right side of the Home tab or the left side of the Formulas tab. Now the next order of business will be a little bit different. We want to select all the sheets from California to New York. Click the California sheet, then hold down the Shift key and click New York. Now in the sheet tabs, it looks like nothing has happened, but in the formula bar, you'll see what's happening. It says California : New York, and you probably recognize that notation style as meaning all the sheets, including California and New York, as well as the ones between them. In other words, Texas and Florida. Now we need a cell reference here. Let's click cell B3. In all those cases, Couches Retail happened to come from cell B3. So we're done. Press return. Same number that we saw before. Obviously, that's a lot shorter. If we add additional states here, we can put them between California and New York, and we don't have to readjust this formula at all. So that's accurate for that cell. We'll double click to copy it down into these two and then drag across for those, and we're all set. So this truly is a summary worksheet. Sometimes these kinds of formulas are referred to as 3D formulas, and the previous longer ones sometimes are called 3D formulas as well. The idea is we're adding up data from multiple sheets as if they were sitting on top of one another. So any one of these formulas, for example, this one, has the same general layout as the others. So we see what's happening here. It's easy to tabulate this information this way. It's much clearer. If we did have a model of all 50 states and they were alphabetized, this would read, for example, Alabama: Wyoming. But we've seen how we can easily create these kinds of formulas, gathering data from multiple sheets. And just a quick test would be here. Jump over to California, for example. Change this number. Maybe it should have been 2,000. So that's going to bump it up by 820 or so. So our previous total of 5,000, if we go to the summary sheet, is now 5,820. So we see what's happened there. So it is accurately reflecting the changes that we made over in the California sheet. Now, let me do this one more time, because sometimes when you see this, it doesn't quite make sense. First, let's start with equal sum. Now, of course, you can type it. A lot of people do that. Equal sum, left parenthesis. What do we do next? Let's select the 4 sheets. Click California. And now, with the Shift key held down, click New York. Then click the appropriate cell address. That's B3. And return. And there's our formula. So 3D formulas make sense in this kind of environment. And this model of putting the data on different sheets in the long run is better than putting all the data on one single sheet. It may not seem obvious at first, but when you've got data either from different sheets or from different months or from different regions, whatever, the multi-sheet model does make sense. And these kinds of formulas, like we saw here, are really powerful.